Hi, everyone. Welcome to All Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Alvaro Gamboa. Thank you so much for being here in the space and time and joining us. Huge shout out to everybody that has been going above and beyond supporting the podcast. All the great positive feedback we've been receiving. I'm so happy, and it makes me so fulfilled to see everybody enjoying themselves, picking up gems along the way. Today's episode number 4 for us. Yay. Today we're going to be talking about all zero. We're talking zero waste, zero carbon emissions, and zero pollution. So let's get into it. Today's episode sponsor is the wonderful creative geniuses over at Posh Face. Posh Faces has a fantastic blueprint beard oil that they've gathered for us gentlemen in the Beard Gang Nation to perfect our grooming skills and get this beard on point. Now you have two options in your beard oils. You have either sandalwood and cedarwood oil, or you could have your lavender and sage beard oil. For my beard lovers, you know that sandalwood and cedarwood has that nice, fantastic fragrance and aroma. It's my personal favorite. And this lavender and sage combo is to die for. Now if you head on over to poshfaces.com, you can get the Blueprint Beard Kit, which comes with your choice of either the lavender and sage or the cedarwood and sandalwood beard oil, a Blueprint beard wax, and a Blueprint beard pomade, which will get that nice firm shape and hold. It'll keep you going all day. Along with that, you'll get a 2-in-1 beard shampoo and conditioner and a set of trimmers to make sure those edges are laid nice and proper. The listeners of the podcast can go on ahead, head over to poshfaces.com and put your promo code GROWTH for an extra 10% off discount. And Posh Faces will get you right like they've gotten me right, like they've gotten everybody right. Again, that's poshfaces.com. Enter the promo code GROWTH for an extra 10% discount on all your order. Now, my Growth Nation, before we get into today's topic, I just want to shed some light onto y'all. I've been experimenting and researching and searching within myself, and I finally found a format I feel will help podcasts grow and to help you and assist you along with what we've been discussing and talking about in this garden of ours. I like to think of all of us as a garden, right? Because we're all capable of growing. So I like to start off by planting seeds. And today's episode, seeds, we're going to be talking about zero waste. We're going to be talking about carbon emissions. We're going to be talking about pollution and how that relates to us. The seeds that I want to plant for all of us is to think of our own personal consumptions, right? Our own wastes, and how we all contribute to the pollution problem. As we go along, when we give some more water and light to these seeds, they'll grow and we can be able to harvest. The seeds about zero waste that I want us to plant is, I know that zero waste for me is, I've been researching, but for some might be a little bit out there. So I just want to explain zero waste. For all of us thinking that, what does zero waste mean? Who does it benefit? And what is this all about? Let's break down zero waste. Zero waste, the technical definition, is the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning and with no discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. That was a lot to take in, so let's run that back. Zero waste is the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, and reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without the burning and with no discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. It's a lot. So when you think about current climate of how corporations and companies and the consumers behave, you realize that all of that might not just be possible. We're actually hustling backwards in terms of what we've been doing, because everything we do is wasteful. Everything that we do, while we try to be resourceful, we actually end up being wasteful. There's a lot of waste that goes along, both in the individual and the societal level. Who does zero waste benefit? Quite literally everyone. The planet, the plants, you, the people. Every being is affected by the gross that is waste. The less waste you have, the less pollution that you have, the less consumption you have, and the less suffering the planet has for both the sentient beings, humans, animals, and the earth. Zero waste, what does zero waste look like? In short, it is very personal. It's almost like success. Success is your own personal definition and how you personally define success for yourself. Zero waste, cutting your waste, is very personal. It's how you want to choose and how you define that for yourself. Just like everyone's definition of success is something personal that you build, your idea and your lifestyle of what a zero waste lifestyle looks like is something that you build, and something that takes time, it takes thought, and it takes execution, it takes intentionality, and it takes planning. Not everyone will be able to do the same things or be the same way or have the same zero waste lifestyle, and that's okay. No pressure on that. It is the thought and the implementation and the intention that counts. So some questions people ask include, does zero waste save money? Well, that depends on how you want to live it. If you want to toss out everything that you own in order to get more glass, to use less or use recyclable material will cost more. Obviously, that is an expense and an investment that you have to consider. Or you could start off very small, and as you transition, you pick up things along the way that help you out. So it's all about how you want to organize these things. Research is definitely necessary and needed. With today's topic being zero waste, why does zero waste matter so much that we devote an entire episode to it? Quite frankly, the fate of our species, the human species, and the planet depends on it. We have lived for far too long being as wasteful and as detrimental to the earth as possible, and it is necessary to reverse course on all of these actions. Would you consider zero waste minimalism? Me personally, I'd like to think so. Minimalism is a way of thinking and a lifestyle that informs your lifestyle choices. Way of thinking that informs your lifestyle choices, and how far you want to get into that is your own personal choice as well. I like to believe that zero waste philosophy is almost the same. Having that intention, building good habits that seek to inflict as little damage as possible or to waste as little as possible. The two schools of thought have a lot in common. And something I want us to question ourselves is zero waste hard, or why would zero waste be hard? I don't think it is hard, especially with today's modern society. I find it relatively easy depending on how you look at it. It was so easy, as a matter of fact, that our ancestors did it. If you really want to go into historical aspects and look at it historically, we have been programmed to go against our ancestral ways in every way, shape, and form, from education, from health, to our resources and how we use all things. You can't even convince me that the Western world, this Eurocentric world that we live in, has a great system. Because when we look at ancient civilizations like the Aztecs, the Mayans, indigenous tribes that were in America before it was this quote unquote discovered, our ancestors had figured it all out. They figured out that we must work with nature as one. We don't need to work against nature, and we're not dominating nature. That's where we've messed up. I feel that. I feel like the fact that we believe ourselves to be the superior beings on this planet, that we've worked to dominate nature and impose our will on nature, and now nature and Mother Earth is getting their payback. You realize that if we're working against nature and we're trying to dominate nature, we're polluting the earth, we're damaging the earth. Eventually, karma's gonna come back and bite us in the ass. In today's modern age, we have been programmed to go the convenient route. Everything is done for us by others, as opposed to being done by us and for us. From ordering out at restaurants instead of learning how to cook good food, let's look into the restaurant experience. With coronavirus, the way things are working out right now is that only takeout and delivery is possible. You order out, you order takeout, you order delivery from a restaurant that comes in a plastic bag with plastic utensils wrapped in paper, or most likely plastic, and styrofoam, all that just to get a decent dinner. Now that is a lot of waste that's just gonna end up in the trash can for one meal. If you're a kind person, if you're a smart person, a resourceful person, you'll reuse that plastic for however many uses, but eventually you'll throw it out because it's plastic. Getting things shipped to us through delivery and ordering online instead of going to the actual restaurant causes a lot more pollution than we think, because the pollution for the delivery driver driving to us, giving of these materials, the packaging of takeout orders, that's a lot of damage. And multiply that by the entire nation. This culture of convenience is frankly a culture of waste, if we're being honest. Let's look now at online shopping, because online shopping is the thing now with coronavirus again taking over. So we look at online shopping and people having multiple packages delivered to your houses every day. Those boxes add up. That packaging inside, the plastic bubble wrap, the plastic containers and things like that, it adds up, and that does a number on us. And we have a bad habit of not being able to pick up after ourselves regardless. So we toss it out in the trash, and we have this cognitive dissonance of like being detached away from that plastic, which is a bad habit if you think about it. And all honesty, I'm calling on all Americans, calling on all men and women that have been wasteful to really think and inflect and search within yourselves on how you have been wasteful, how you've contributed. Let's plant these seeds within us now so that we can reverse course. This simple idea that we need to leave spaces better than how we found them should make for a better society. So I'm calling on all of us to start thinking about leaving spaces, both people, both things, better than how we found them. Instead of seeing how we can get from people, from things, from environments, we should be changing our mindset to think on how can I give back to this environment to make it a better environment than how I found it. That simple change in mindset will heal so much damage. We can't have this belief that we are above nature. It's not simple. It's not that. We are nature. We are one with nature. We're not separated from. We have to make the switch from taking everything that we can humanly possible from things to seeing how we can restore, how we can build onto things. Leaving things better than how we found them will heal so much. You have to look at building as opposed to destroying things, because it's easy to destroy things, but it's harder and it's much more rewarding to build communities, to build equitable, sustainable communities, to be able to build things that replenish themselves and are sustainable in the long run. Collaborating with others and with nature is our destiny, according to the divine. Like, that's just something that I feel within myself and I need to share with you all, because we can't have this belief that we are above nature, we are above animals, we are above the earth. We are nature. We are all one being. We are one and the same. So those are the seeds that we're planting for today's episode, and I want us now to move on over and make a shift into thinking how we can grow in today's subject. So just like plants, you and I are able to grow. And what are the things that you, myself, plants need to grow? We're going to give some water and light today to today's subject. Today's water and light is going to be talking about carbon emissions and pollution, the things that destroy our water and light. We're going to be discussing how we can reduce our carbon emissions globally. According to a recent survey and a study, in 2019, 60 countries pledged to reduce their carbon emissions to zero. Let me read that again. In 2019, 60 countries worldwide pledged to reduce their carbon emissions to zero. That's great news. That's fantastic. Now, what's the catch? Because there's always a catch. The catch? They only accounted for 11% of the world's carbon emissions. 60 countries out of the 200 countries accounted for 11% of the world's carbon emissions. So fantastic. These 60 countries pledged to reduce their carbon emissions to zero. They're barely making a dent. That is the truth of the matter. The countries that must focus on reducing carbon emissions, that should take these pledges seriously, and that should put all their energy into reducing their carbon emissions, top three: America gets the gold, China gets the silver, and India gets the bronze. It's fantastic. These three countries are the most polluted countries on earth, and these are facts. If you look at America, things that we could do locally, we could do individually to reduce our carbon emission will help us go from locally to regionally to nationally. Simple things like going from driving alone, commuting alone, to getting into carpools, frequenting more carpools, using public forms of transportation, and even using electric cars. These will reduce our gas emissions, our reliance on gas, our reliance on coal, our reliance on natural gas and fossil fuels. If you want to take it a step further, things like bike riding, skating, scooters, these are all acceptable forms of public transportation in cities and urban cities. Now, if you go more suburban, if you go more rural, these might not be feasible, but damn it, it's a start. But who knew the cure to world population is going back to your 12-year-old self? If you'd have told me to start scootering and biking again and cycling and going everywhere in a scooter and on a skateboard, I wouldn't have believed you. If you're there. But I see it. There are grown men and women with helmets, knee pads, and elbow pads, scootering and skating everywhere. And for those, I myself am guilty of it. We used to think, oh, that's kind of corny, or that's kind of lame, whatever, kind of odd, weird. Now that is the norm. That is actually the mainstream. And some public forms of transportation include buses and trains. And if we're to go ahead and think about reducing our pollution, reducing our waste down to zero, we really need to think about public transportation and rethink our thought process around public transportation. We need to start shifting from a car-heavy society into a bus and railroad-heavy society. Demolishing highways and building high-speed intercontinental railroads, that is the dream. Now, I want to shed some water and light on something. There are a couple of companies and industries that will no longer exist and have to no longer exist and must be extinct, must become extinct in order for zero waste to become a dream, to be possible. These industries include fossil fuel industries, obviously, the automobile industry, meat industries. The way we think about our food needs to change. The transportation industry won't become extinct, but it definitely needs to be reprioritized and reimagined. Why would you say that? First and foremost, let's talk about meat industries. The fact that we have, I want to say, 3 or 4 cows to every human being, 10 animals to every human being that we are going to end up consuming leaves a lot of, if you're thinking about cows, a lot of methane gas. If you're thinking about all animals, these animals require land to grow crops to feed, and instead of feeding these animals, you could feed humans with that. We could just reduce our meat consumption entirely. While we think about the meat industry, we have to think about the processes that go into creating meat, creating food for people. The vast majority of carbon that is wasted, of gas that is wasted, of resources that are wasted in the process of getting you your burger or your steak. If you look at the fossil fuel industry, I know a lot of people close to me that get into trading and try to get into fossil fuel industries and buy oil company stocks. And be honest with you, bro, get your money out of there fast and ASAP, because that is a huge waste of money, and that money is going to draw back negative, I promise you. And people are already thinking about that now. If you look at meat industries and fossil fuel industries, they're trying to reinvent themselves right in front of our face. Meat industries have developed strategy and a game plan to go from making animal meat to making plant-based meats. Now, these plant-based meats, they're better for you, yes, but you're already seeing that because of our demand going from meat-based products, animal-based products to plant-based products, demand of it is changing the shift in supply. So that is making way and reducing our carbon emissions and making way for a better, greener planet. The same goes for the automobile industry. If we were to rethink and prioritize the transportation industry and saying, you know what, I'm not driving anymore, we're not driving anymore, we shouldn't be on highways, we should be thinking about intercontinental railroads and a national railroad system and a transportation system for all, the automobile industry is going to lose it. And honestly, that's quite better for your pocket. If we are not spending thousands and thousands of dollars investing into cars, into gasoline, into maintenance on a material item that depreciates as soon as you buy it and depreciates with more use, and you have more money in your pocket, that's better for you, that's better for your people, that's better for your pocket. Why would people want that? Why? Because they want your money. They don't care about your well-being, they don't care about your health, they don't care about the earth's health, they care about your pocket. The automobile industry, the fossil fuel industry, the meat industry, all these industries, they don't care about you, they don't care about the earth, they care about their bottom line. Facts. And thinking about pollution, let's shed some water and light on pollution. I want to start out by saying that I have a very clear mission in mind in saying death to plastic. That is something that needs to happen immediately and expeditiously. Having no plastic around you or in your life is better for your health and the planet's health. Plastic is everywhere. Plastic is in our oceans, it's in our landfills, it is in our blood even, and it's disgusting. There's plastic in our oceans the size of countries. There are plastic islands going on about. There's so much plastic that these huge whales, the biggest creatures on earth, have seen their demise from the consumption of plastic. Huge bellies of whales just filled to the brim with plastic and exploded because of the garbage ingested that we put there ourselves. We dump tons of plastic every day into our oceans with zero repercussions, zero thought into the consequences of these actions. Now let's go back into land. The same goes there. We dump so much plastic into our land through our landfills that deteriorates the earth from within, that increases the earth's core temperature. And these are all things that we know about, and yet we continue to do it with zero remorse for our actions. There's pollution everywhere, and yet people still go about doing so. When I said that there's plastic in your blood, I meant that. There are scientists and doctors that say that we have microplastics in our food and in our blood. If you eat from a plastic container, there is plastic in your food. Plastic bleeds into your food, bleeds into whatever is being held into that, bleeds into your liquid, and then you thus ingest plastic. So if you want, and if you're not as afraid as others, and you want to find out for yourself, please get blood work done. Something that we could do to reduce pollution, again, is cutting our meat. All right, cutting out meat reduces the pollution created from harvesting, farming, and processing animals. It's better for your health, it's better for your optimal health, it's better for the earth's health. Can a reduction of pollution be achieved? Of course it can. Our ancestors did it. I'm not talking about our grandfather or great-grandfathers. I'm talking about our ancient ancestors, that they lived one with the earth. This is a call for everyone to start returning to our ancestral ways. Of course it can happen. Knowing that we are one with the earth and we come from the earth allows us to realize that we must do our part, something that was heavily preached about in ancient times. There was no pollution then, and there won't be once we remove what isn't working. It's simple as that. How is it that our peoples made fantastic advanced irrigation systems and waste management systems and we don't hear about it? And you already know what I'm going to say. You already know the conquistadors came over and colonizers came over and took over our land, labeled us savages and barbaric, labeled us as animals, as less than, as subhuman. These are all mechanisms that allowed them to get away with what they needed to do, which is the domination and the oppression of both people and land. Simple as that. So just like any garden, any space where things grow, some things end up growing there that you didn't want. These are weeds. In the restaurant industry, when you say that you're in the weeds, that means you're stressed out. You can't think. You're bugging. You got a bunch of things that you need to prioritize and put your energy to and multitask, and you end up feeling drained. When you're in the weeds, you are in it, sister. You hear me? Now, switching over into the gardening realm, when you hear someone pulling out weeds, they're pulling out plants that are growing there that are intrusive species that didn't want to be there, that weren't planned to be there, but they're there, so you have to pull them out. And it takes some labor to get out of the weeds, to get these weeds out of our gardens, and to get these weeds, these thoughts and these systems of weeds out of our systems, out of us. The types of weeds we're talking about are the types of waste that we have in our world. The types of weeds that we'll be talking about are the types of wastes that we have in our own personal lives. There are so many different types of wastes that we pay no mind to, that it's about time we go ahead and give these the proper time and space to discuss. The number one thing that we waste on the individual level and on the societal level is food. There's just so much wasted food. As a people, we have a bad habit of wasting perfectly good food, both individually and collectively. Everyone's to blame here. Everyone shared a slice of the pie. Groups of people living off of dumpster dives in cities all over America have shown us that we have an excessive amount of food waste. The amount of food we waste in this country alone can feed countries all over the world. Part of that problem is not being aware of our food intake, which allows for food waste to persist. When you're not aware of your food intake, food waste is a problem that just slinks in there like a slithery snake, and the next thing you know, your whole fridge is just empty. I've been heartbroken before, and there is no worse heartbreak than seeing fruits that you bought just rot in your fridge. You forgot about them, buddy. You didn't account for your food intake. Next thing you know, they're gone. They're rotted. You gotta throw them out. That hurts, brother. That hurts right here in my heart. Not being aware of our food intake allows for a lot of problems. A lot of health problems, a lot of wealth problems, and a lack of care. When you have health problems in food, that's a problem. The health problems that come from food waste include a lack of food, a scarcity of food, malnourishment, improper nutrition, which can lead to a multitude of problems. When you think about the money that you spend on food that just goes to waste, both at the individual and society level, that's ridiculous. We're talking about billions with a B. That money can be reinvested into communities to give us all the food that we need and then some, to be able to export out to other countries and help out. If you're really being serious about it, let's look at the food waste, right? If you're okay as a company and a corporation with food waste, that shows a lack of care and an active negligence on your part. I've worked for companies that just treated food waste like it was a part of the operations. Seeing pounds and pounds of food get wasted on the daily broke my heart. Now, these corporations and these companies, former place that I used to work at, I use it as an example, these corporations and companies make it a point to throw away the food. Throw away whatever food you see. If you get caught redistributing this food, either for yourself, for your family, or for whoever may be in the community, that deserves repercussions, or that gets repercussions, I should say. That gets you in trouble, and that is not something that should be endorsed or supported. If we're being intentional about reducing our waste, I think the fact that redistributing food should become a priority as opposed to wasting food. Another waste that ends up being a weed in our lives is wasted space. Having a lot of dead, negative, improperly used space is a killer, a silent killer, honestly. And when we waste space, we're not realizing our full potential. Because when you make space for things, they arrive. fully as themselves. Making space so that everything and everyone has a home is a learned skill. I will go as far as to say that these skills are not taught in our society. These skills are not taught in our classrooms. That's intentional. So we have to be intentional about being organized, being caring, and being compassionate and diligent with our space, not just for ourselves, but for the greater good, so that it helps you, it helps others, and it doesn't deter anyone. If we waste food and if we waste space, what is another thing that we waste? Time. Time is the only resource that you cannot get back once it's wasted. Once it's gone, brother. There have been too many times where I realized I've wasted time on things, on places, on people, and boy, does resentment build in. There comes a certain amount of regret and resentment that comes with wasting space, but let those be lessons to you to help you reprioritize where you want to be in life. Let those be lessons for you to open up your vision and see where you need to redistribute, reprioritize your time, and not give so much of your time to things. Because as a Latino, I gotta tell you, man, this colored people time is some real stuff. Running on black people time, running on brown people time, running on Latin people time, that is some true shit. Whether you're Dominican, whether you're Puerto Rican, Cuban, Colombian, whether you're from Barbados, Haiti, Belize, there are so many people, I wanna say, within the diaspora that take time for granted. And if they take their time for granted, they are more than likely, I'm willing to bet on it, going to take your time for granted. I've been invited so many times out to places. Whenever one of my black and brown brothers and sisters, whenever one of my brothers tells me, yo, the spot is popping, we're gonna be there at X time, I'm gonna go ahead and just add on. This is me personally now. I'm gonna go ahead and just add on an hour and a half to whatever time they give me. If I have my homies out here inviting me out to something and say, yo, party's jumping over at 10 o'clock, we're gonna be there, it's gonna be lit, I won't say anything, but I know within my head, I'll get there like 11:30. I won't have any qualms with that, because people will waste your time. And that goes for both the personal and the professional. I've taken it upon myself to not take things personally. When someone sets a time to do something and they don't fulfill that promise, I used to get mad. I will be very upfront. I used to get very angry and disturbed and bothered, like, how do you not respect my time, let alone your time? And that's the thing, they don't respect their time. So of course they're not gonna respect your time or your time together. The solution that I came up with was not to take it personally and bring a book. That goes with everything, whether it be business, whether it be pleasure. Think about it. Once you start reprioritizing your time and saying, damn, I wasted so much time, let me use my time purposefully now. Once you do that, you can do everything to build. One last thing I want to say about time is that Einstein said that time comes from within us. Time comes from within, meaning that you prioritize and you make time for the things that you find necessary, that you find important, and that you find urgent to do. And if someone is wasting their time with you, with themselves, they're not prioritizing their time. They're not being urgent, or they're not finding it necessary to be on time, the importance of being on time with these things. So when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Once you realize that time comes from within and we make time for the things we want, everything becomes possible. You're able to build better systems, you're able to build better habits, better routines, you're able to create more with the same amount of time. And it's such a beautiful feeling. I used to waste my time, I used to waste the time of others, and this mindset switch changed the world for me, and I know it will for you too. Another waste that we find in our society, we find in our people, is wasted potential, and that is a big one. Having a bad habit of wasting things like food, space, and time ultimately leads to a waste of potential, because we are letting these opportunities slide right by us due to our unpreparedness, our lack of intentions, our misuse of our resources, and lack of proper planning and execution. These physical wastes that I talked about earlier, like space and food, manifest themselves in other ways as well. Wasted potential looks different for everyone. It's on a spectrum. Wasted potential for me looks like empty lots of land that are just ripe for opportunity. When we think about the wasted potential in our own personal lives, how many opportunities, job opportunities, friendship opportunities, relationship opportunities did we let slip by our hands or fall through the cracks because of whatever reason, whatever doubt we may have had, whatever fear we may have had, whatever lack of thought or intention that we put into things? These are all things that lead to wasted potential. Wasted potential for me looks like empty lots of land all over this great nation that are just ripe for opportunity. How many empty lots of just wasted land, growing weeds everywhere, are just ripe for opportunity? Damn, with a little love, care, and attention, a little TLC, we could renovate this and create something great. So whenever I walk by an empty lot of land, whenever I see land that is just there being wasted away and like perfectly good use, I think about that. And one of my dreams that I'm working on realizing is buying land, renovating land, and being able to plant gardens on every corner. To be able to transmute this wasted potential into realized potential is something that is both an internal and external journey, and the reward is so fulfilling. And the last weed that we're pulling out today is wasted energy. Think of how many things you wasted your energy on. I've already mentioned a couple of them before. You've wasted your energy on buying food, on cooking food, on preparing food, on planning the food that you want to have. You've wasted your energy on the spaces that you've allowed to waste away, on the spaces that you've built for yourself that didn't serve you. You've wasted your time on things and people that weren't worthy or deserving of it, and you've wasted potential on things and people and adventures that weren't worthy and deserving of it. And it's okay, lessons learned. We've experienced these, we've gotten results, and we realized that this doesn't work for us. We've tried it and it doesn't work, moving on to something new. The energy that could have been used to better ourselves is instead used to clean up our messes or make up for the damage that has been inflicted, these things that I've lost out on. Instead of thriving, we're focusing on surviving. That's how much energy we've wasted on these things. Let's thinking about the physical energy that we have. The energy that is used in fossil fuels is wasted and not utilized properly. Think of how much waste goes around in these industries, in the meat industry, in the fossil fuel industry, in the automobile industry. These industries have prioritized their waste. They say it's okay to have this energy wasted because it's only a small amount. That thought pattern, that philosophy has leaked into our way of life. We're okay with wasting energy on dumb stuff, let me be frank, on piss poor habits for us to help us in life. These things do not help us. So once you pull this weed out of your life and saying, I'm not going to waste my energy on these things anymore, once you do that, make that active decision and that active step for yourself and live and choose to live a life of realized potential for the greater good, for your community, and for the world, zero waste becomes absolutely possible. To finish off today's episode, we're going to be looking at our harvest today. Let's harvest the fruits of our labors. So what have we learned today? We've learned a lot about zero waste, how we actively contribute to the wasteful ways of this world, carbon emissions, and the way we pollute. So some things that I like for us to do is find ways to reduce our carbon emissions, reduce our wastes. These things include limiting your consumption of things, focusing on minimalism as opposed to materialism. One fruit that I want us to think about is how we support these systems of waste. When we focus on or we support these systems of waste, we give our consent into these systems. We're complicit as well into these systems. So once you opt out of these systems, you're being a rebel and you're rebelling against the system, which I absolutely love and adore. So moving forward from today, think about the ways in which you waste things and how you can better live your life so that there is as little waste as possible to live a better life and a better earth. That about wraps it up for today's episode, everyone. Remember, everyone, to please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening from. Thank you for listening. Till next time, keep growing, keep glowing, keep going.